The Book of Giants, the Nephilim's own story. The Bible speaks of a time when giants walked the earth, the Nephilim. Genesis chapter 6 offers a few tantalizing verses, calling them the offspring of the sons of God, and the daughters of humans, and the heroes of old, men of renown. But then, just as quickly, the story moves on, leaving us with a profound and enduring mystery. The account is brief, almost an echo of a forgotten age. But what if there was another story, a lost book buried for millennia that tells the tale not from our perspective, but from theirs? Found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the 20th century, the Book of Giants reveals the Nephilim's own account of their existence. It chronicles their terrifying dreams, their visions of a great flood sent to destroy them, and the divine judgment they knew was coming. This isn't the story of humanity's survival, but the story of the giants' annihilation, told in their own words. Section 1. Context and Discovery. In 1947, in the windswept caves of Qumran, a Bedouin shepherd stumbled upon clay jars holding ancient scrolls hidden for 2,000 years. Among these priceless texts, which included fragments from almost every book of the Hebrew Bible, were other, non-canonical writings that had been lost to time. One of the most fascinating was a document written in Aramaic, dating to before the 2nd century BC, which we now call the Book of Giants. Though shattered into fragments, these scrolls offered something unprecedented, a glimpse into the world before the flood from the perspective of the giants themselves. For centuries, they were figures of myth, but these ancient texts confirmed that their story was once a key part of ancient belief, an attempt to explain how wickedness grew so powerful and why a cleansing of the world was necessary. This wasn't just a simple myth. It was a coherent narrative that circulated so widely, it was even adopted centuries later by the Manichaean religion across Asia. The discovery at Qumran brought the giants' voices back from the silence of history, allowing us to finally piece together the story of their rise and their terrifying fall. Section 2. The World Before, the Rebellion of the Watchers. The story begins not on Earth, but in the heavens. According to ancient texts like the Book of Enoch, a group of celestial beings, 200 in all, known as the Watchers, were tasked with observing humanity. Their role was to be distant guardians, to witness but never interfere. But as they gazed upon the earth, they became captivated by the beauty of human women. Led by a chieftain named Shemihaza, these Watchers made a pact. They abandoned their heavenly posts and descended upon Mount Hermon, violating the sacred boundary between the divine and the mortal. And they didn't come empty-handed. They brought forbidden knowledge, secrets of heaven humanity was never meant to possess. They taught the arts of war, how to forge weapons of destruction. They revealed the secrets of sorcery, cosmetics, and astrology, unveiling wisdom that, in mortal hands, would sow chaos instead of enlightenment. Their rebellion wasn't just an act of lust, it was a fundamental betrayal of their sacred duty, a transgression that would unbalance the world and set in motion a chain of unimaginable corruption. Section 3. Birth of the Giants. From the union of these fallen Watchers and human women, a new race was born, the Nephilim, a name that can mean the fallen ones. They were giants, beings of immense size and strength, a hybrid race caught between heaven and earth. They were not fully divine, nor were they fully human. This mix made them powerful, but also unstable, their very existence a disruption of the natural order. The Book of Giants and related texts like the Book of Enoch paints a grim picture of their nature. They were born with an insatiable appetite. As they grew, they consumed all the produce of the earth, and when that wasn't enough, they turned on animals, birds, and eventually, humanity itself. Their reign was one of violence and consumption. They were brutish and destructive creatures, driven by a relentless need to feed and conquer. The world, once orderly, was now subject to the whims of these ravenous giants, who caused immense violence and corruption, enslaving and exploiting those they lived alongside. The earth itself began to cry out, groaning under the weight of their sins. Section 4. The Giants' Reign of Chaos. The world transformed into a landscape of fear under the Nephilim's dominion. Their corruption wasn't limited to simple gluttony. It was a complete perversion of the created order. The texts describe a world spiraling into madness as the giants devoured, killed, and oppressed. They sinned against all living things, from humans to the smallest creatures of the earth. Some fragments hint at even darker deeds, of monstrous creations and the mixing of species, as the giants and their watcher fathers experimented with the fabric of life. Violence was their language, and bloodshed their legacy. The world was defiled. Names familiar from other mythologies even appear, most notably Gilgamesh, who is portrayed as one of the mightiest giants. His inclusion suggests how these stories blended with wider Near Eastern traditions, creating a rich and terrifying mythology of a world on the brink of collapse. Their power seemed absolute, their strength unmatched. They were the undisputed lords of the earth, but their reign was built on a cosmic crime, and a reckoning was brewing. Section 5. The Terrifying Dreams. It was at the height of their power that the giants began to be tormented by a new, internal enemy, their own minds. They were plagued by a series of terrifying dreams and visions, prophetic nightmares that foretold their own destruction. One of the giants, Mahwe, son of the angel Barakel, brought a disturbing dream to the others. He saw a vision of a scribe washing a stone tablet in water. As the tablet was lifted out, all the names on it were erased, except for 3. The meaning was chillingly clear. A coming flood would wipe out nearly all life, sparing only Noah and his 3 sons. Another giant, Ohia, spoke of a dream where the ruler of heaven descended to earth. Others dreamed of a great garden with 200 trees being consumed by a raging fire. These trees represented the 200 watchers, their fathers, and the fire symbolized their coming judgment. The dreams were a direct message from a higher power. The giants, for all their physical might, were gripped by a fear they had never known. The conquerors of the world were now haunted by visions of their own doom, realizing their story was about to be erased. Section 6. The Plea to Enoch. In a panic, the giants knew they needed an interpreter, someone who could not only understand these divine warnings, but also plead their case. They chose a man who walked between worlds, Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah. Known for his righteousness, Enoch was a scribe who had not joined the rebellion and could communicate with the heavens. The giants sent Mahwe on a perilous journey to find the scribe, begging him to act as their intermediary and bring a petition for mercy before God. The irony is profound. The Watchers, angelic beings meant to intercede for humanity, were now so fallen they needed a mortal man to intercede for them and their sons. They were desperate to avoid the judgment they saw coming. Enoch agreed to carry their message, but the response from heaven would offer no comfort. The story of the giants, told in these ancient scrolls, gives us a perspective lost for centuries. It's a tale of power, rebellion, and the terrifying realization of divine justice. If you find these deep dives into forgotten history compelling, take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming next. Section 7. The Divine Judgment and Aftermath. Enoch returned, but not with the words of forgiveness the giants hoped for. He brought a message of irrevocable judgment. Their petition was denied. Heaven declared that their crimes were too great, the corruption they had unleashed too profound. The Watchers would be bound in darkness to witness their children's destruction, and the giants, the Nephilim, would be wiped from the face of the earth. The verdict was absolute because their rebellion had violated the fundamental boundaries of creation. The forbidden knowledge they shared, and the violence they spread, justified God's decision to send the great flood. There would be no escape. The giant Gilgamesh, despite his strength, lamented that he could not stand against the forces of heaven. The end came just as the dreams had foretold. Archangels descended, and the world the giants had terrorized was violently reclaimed. The floodwaters rose, cleansing the earth of the Nephilim and their corruption, washing away their reign in a torrent of divine judgment, and resetting the world for the age of humanity that would follow. Conclusion. The Book of Giants offers a haunting epilogue to the story of the world before the flood. It presents the Nephilim not just as one-dimensional monsters, but as tragic figures who, in their final days, felt fear, anxiety, and a desperate desire for salvation. It fills in the gaps left by canonical texts, answering what happened to the heroes of old. Their story is a powerful cautionary tale about forbidden knowledge, violating the natural order, and the catastrophic consequences of unchecked power. So why was this book left out of the Bible? Perhaps its perspective was too challenging, its narrative too sympathetic to the condemned, blurring the lines between good and evil. It gives a voice to the vanquished, and in doing so, it raises profound questions. Does this ancient text represent a forgotten history, a mythology explaining the origin of evil, or something else entirely? What the Book of Giants provides, ultimately, is a richer, more complex, and far more unsettling understanding of the world before the flood. It leaves us wondering, what other stories remain buried, waiting to be rediscovered? What are your thoughts on this lost story of the Nephilim? Do you believe it could fill critical gaps in our understanding of the ancient past? Let us know your theories in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into a forgotten world, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more explorations into history's greatest mysteries.